Okay. My name is Sarah Lamagna. I'm a monitoring ecologist at the BLM National Operations Center. I work really closely with Emily Kuchergis over there. I have the lovely job of being the last talk today, and I appreciate everyone who is still here. Thank you for being awake. And I sort of am synthesizing kind of what went on today. So if you've missed all of the previous presentations, you really just, I guess, needed to come to this one. So I'm going to talk today about how you can support landscape monitoring, and this goes from collaborative design to data sharing. And that's actually more of the side that I know. We have all of these ologists on our team. I know a lot about the AIM data part of things. So first, I just kind of wanted to talk about the importance of collaborative monitoring. First off, public lands are not islands, so there's many administrative boundaries, but ecosystems themselves go well past administrative boundaries. I made this quick graphic yesterday, started for the elementary look to it. But, just kind of quick, we've got Forest Service lands and BLM lands and, sage grouse habitat. The sage grouse don't stop right at the BLM allotment land. There's not this wall that's up there. They keep going. So, it's important to kind of have this collaborative design or collaborative monitoring so that, we're not just talking to ourselves all the time. We're talking to other agencies, private landowners, nonprofits, things like that. It's also important for our multiple scale questions. So with AIM, we keep talking about, collect data once and use it many times. And so you can use it sort of at this local level. We have many projects that you saw today across the lower 48 and including Alaska that we have these very project-specific level questions, and then we scale up to more of the regional and the national questions. Collaborative monitoring also encourages multiple perspectives. I don't think any person in this room can say they're definitely right. Maybe Gordon might say that. But it's good to get multiple perspectives, to get different opinions, and kind of make sure that we check ourselves every now and then to make sure that we're doing what's best for the ecosystem and still being able to answer our questions. And then, obviously, with collaborative monitoring, if you're actually collaborating with other agencies and you guys are collecting the same data, there's much less duplication, which means ultimately less cost. And I'm oversimplifying things, obviously. It's just it's to make sure that you're not going to the same spot, collecting the same data, and just duplicating your efforts. And so, more specifically, the importance of collaborative data sharing involves many different things. So, consistent data can be used by various audiences with different objectives. So, again, that collect once used many times. In order to, you can't compare apples to oranges. So we need, I should have underlined the consistent data part, because you really can't collaborate if you're not collecting the same sort of data. It also advances scholarship and promotes new research through existing data. And so, you're kind of able to share data with potentially hundreds and thousands of researchers and land managers that are out there. And they have this data for the entire life cycle of the data. So it's really important with that. It also increases transparency. We tend to kind of hide all of our data, our raw data, our methods, and things like that. And so, it gives access to data sets and allows managers to understand how the data was collected, understand how conclusions were drawn, and making the ability to determine if a particular data set is actually appropriate for secondary research or tertiary research, things like that. So, and then obviously collaborative data sharing, there's just more data. Again, I don't think anyone in this room can say that less data is good. So more data is always kind of better. And so to kind of wrap it up into kind of what we discussed all today is, why AIM? Why should you collaborate with AIM, the AIM methods and the AIM indicators? So AIM, as we've all heard previously, it provides a set of standard methods to collect standard indicators. So, back to those 5 principles that Jason couldn't remember. The first 2 is standard methods and standard indicators. And again, it's hard to compare apples to oranges. So you don't want to be collecting totally different data using a different method, because then it is quite hard to compare the 2. And then also it provides unbiased data, and so it goes back to this multiple scale question. So if we're having this statistically valid scalable sampling design, we're able to infer up to larger scales. And then for those of you in the BLM, this is good also for defensible data. So making sure that if you get litigated, you are able to have sort of that more defensible data. And so this was the lovely figure that Jason just had up on his presentation. So the ways that you can collaborate with AIM is obviously this process model, so it can go anywhere from the design, the methods that we use, those standard indicators again, and then also this data collection and data storage part of things. And this is really the part that I'm most intimately involved with. So with that, my big job when I first started at the BLM was to help create this national monitoring database, which I apologize for the name. It was the lesser of, I guess, many evils. But so it's called TerrADat, meaning Terrestrial AIM Database. There is also going to be AquaDat, which kind of sounds like a superhero in my opinion. And so that's the aquatic side of things, and Scott Miller is working on that. He was the National Aquatic AIM lead. So the TerrADat itself, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I am not like a techie database person, so I'm learning as I go. But so it's held on a Microsoft SQL server. All of our crews use schema, which stands for the Database for Inventory Monitoring and Assessment, and that was developed at the ARS Granada. And it's a very standardized way to collect the data. And so basically what TerrADat does is we upload into this database all of the DEMA data. And it actually just launched last month. So this is fresh off the press. So pretty exciting. This really has come to fruition. And then so what it actually does, what's so great about it, so it's a featured service right now. If you're a BLM employee, you can access it no problem on our EGIS system. And so what it does is, it's a feature service. We have 3,220 plots that are project-specific data. So kind of everybody that's been talking today, all their data is already up in TerrADat. And so for each of the plots there, so all those points on the map there are standard summaries that are given for all of our standard indicators. So, veg composition, gas, non-native invasive species, things like that. And then we also have some supplemental indicators as well, like soil stability, and then also the indicators of rangeland health. If that was done on your plot, we provide the final ratings that were given for the indicators of rangeland health. And again, for the BLM, this is really nice to have to help you with your data calls that you get. Always seems to happen kind of at a very busy time, not that there really isn't a busy time with those of you in the field and district and state offices. But, you know, instead of the Washington office calling you up, they can actually just grab the data from TerrADat itself, or they can just go to the NOC to get it. So it kind of bypasses you guys having to do all this extra work and sum up all of the data that you've accumulated. And again, so it's centralized storage. So instead of having to manage all these different state data sets and, you know, trying to make sure everything is consistent, the NOC will facilitate this. And this doesn't mean that this is no longer the, you know, the state data or the district's data. You have full ownership of those data. We're just going to help you facilitate it a little bit on our end. And so once everything goes in, if you have a very good QA/QC plan and it makes its way to the NOC relatively quickly, it doesn't take long for it to upload into TerrADat, and then you can quickly get all of those indicator summaries pretty quickly. So I just kind of wanted to go over, again, kind of as a synthesis of what everyone kind of talked about today, so all of these different examples of collaboration. And I tried to take as many notes as I could today. So, you know, starting from sort of a smaller scale, so we had Paul and Casey and from the Agua Fria National Monument, and he had stated right on his slide there that they're working with a variety of stakeholders. And, you know, he had the slide up that was 30,000 acres of BLM land, 40,000 acres of Forest Service land, and again, there isn't like this big wall that goes across the land that says, yep, we're done at this point. It keeps going. And so that's kind of one smaller scale example of how people are collaborating with AIM. I stole this from Mark's presentation, and so Nevada BLM is using, or is collaborating with the Nevada Division of Wildlife by having the DOW there implement kind of the same AIM strategies that the Nevada BLM State Office is doing. And as he stated in his presentation as well, the BLM at the Nevada State Office provided data from 2011 to 2013, right, Mark? Is that okay? Yeah. To the Nevada Sagebrush Ecosystem Council, and that's going to help them develop their system to monitor sage-grouse. So this can really be kind of a bigger scale thing. So then moving kind of up to a larger scale, I wanted to put in here all the aquatics collaboration that's going on. Scott Miller, as the head of the aquatic side of AIM, has done a tremendous amount of work making sure that he's collaborating with kind of as many agencies and stakeholders as possible. And so, you know, just as examples, you know, there's the Western Rivers and Streams assessment that he discussed. There's TIVO that was discussed earlier as well, you know, collecting the same aquatic standard indicators. There's the Northwest Forest Plan that's being headed up by Stephanie Miller, and there's a lot more. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, not just on the terrestrial side of things. You know, we heard a lot of terrestrial talks today, but there's a huge portion on the aquatic side as well. And then so there's also this larger aspect on the terrestrial side of BLM and NRCS collaborating together. And I do want to make it known that this is just a draft map. That's why it's in big red letters. And Gordon specifically asked me to make sure I said this is draft. So this goes back to how the National Resources Inventory has been done by the NRCS on non-federal lands, and they're also bringing that over to federal lands through the landscape monitoring framework and putting the two together so that they can start making these maps of showing, you know, this is non-federal and BLM managed range land where average height of preferred sagebrush is between 1 and 3 feet. So we're able to kind of bring a lot of data together into one, you know, nice product that actually means something. And then just most recently, we talked a little bit about how BLM is assisting Landfire with their mapping needs. And I'm going to call out Henry on this to say, you know, he said flat data is the bread and butter of Landfire. And he said it maybe a little bit more drastically with, you know, they live and die with flat data. But I just want to point out that, you know, the BLM is helping, we've given them all of our TerrADat data to help assist with their remap. I also wanted to point out too with Colin and the grass shrub effort that he's heading with Matt Bobo. You know, and he also said in his talk that he really needs consistent data over a landscape. So again, this is something that AIM has helped with. And then just quickly what Chris had just said, and he pointed out a particular project that was done with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the BLM and doing this mapping of sandhill cranes. So, you know, there's a bunch of stuff going on. So sort of the take-home messages today is, you know, AIM can really help with your land management decisions. And really, if you do collaborate, it's not just the BLM that, you know, we can help you with your land management decisions. It's across agencies. And that, you know, in order to do that, it is important to collect standard data using standard methods, again, crossing those administrative boundaries. And then, again, the more data we have, the better. And as I've just kind of pointed out, there's a lot of collaboration already occurring. And we are happy to do more collaboration. And so I would say, if you would like to, please contact me or Emily, really. Emily's the lead on the terrestrial side. Or you can phone Gordon too. So that's what I've got. I can take questions. And I'll welcome, if there's specific questions for different projects, if you guys can answer those questions, that'd be great. So.
Then we're just going to get questions for the moderator for that.
I think Emily's going to probably do the moderator. Yeah. Even specifically to data too. Yeah, go ahead.
TerrADat.
Is
available to you? Is there a plan to make that public?
So the question was if TerrADat is going to be made publicly available, and the answer I would say is yes. So we are in the process of making these tools a little bit easier to get to without you having to call us and, you know, do this kind of clunky version of data sharing agreements and things like that. But in the interim, if you need data, you contact either me or Emily. My contact info is right on the screen there. I think both of our cards are on the back table as well. But, you know, we're sort of in this mindset most of the national AIM team is on this mindset of set the data free. So, you know, it's public data, and we want to make it publicly available. So. Okay, go ahead.
Is this system kind of prepared for like imagery data sets? Like, is this something that is going to be related to the UIS system?
Oh, yes.
Uploading imagery and then find a way to share that to everyone? Yeah,
so the question was if the TerrADat system is going to be related to kind of remote sensing and imagery and things like that. Yes. So I do want to point out, maybe this wasn't really, you know, hit hard with you guys, but remote sensing is an AIM principle. And so we are thoroughly involved with remote sensing efforts. And so our data is going to help train all of those remote sensing imagery to make it better. So I think you had a question first, yeah.
I heard a lot today about agency collaboration and collaboration and outside.
Do you want to take that question, Gordon?
I'd be happy to, but you want to take it from more of a data
perspective, or?
Even to come up.
Yeah, that sounds like a broader.
The question is asking about the permittee side of things and how collaboration will happen with that.
Okay, and I'll answer just from the BLM, somewhat of a range perspective, in that I would hope that the permittees would be coordinating, collaborating with their range specialists on their allotment to set up a monitoring plan, and so that there is that joint operation. We call it cooperative permitting monitoring, cooperative stakeholder monitoring, whatever you want to term you want to use. But I would highly, highly encourage the permittees to get with their range specialists to look at the data, go over it, understand what it means, what the summaries mean, so that when it comes time for permit renewal, you are fully aware of what's been going on. So I don't know if that answers your question, Gordon. Okay. Did that